if there is like Black law students at the University of Illinois in Chicago claiming that they had heart palpitations because on a law school exam that was about employment discrimination, the professor included N and then 5 asterisks, and that's how he depicted the N-word. Didn't spell it out. And for years before, no one had said anything about that exam. But this year, a group of students are still in the process of trying to have this poor man fired for including that on the exam. And more to the point, that's not an isolated story. There are now hundreds of these stories, literally hundreds. Don't you think that it matters? I think it matters.
Well,
and remember, there's another story too, which was when the George Floyd incident occurred. Mm-hmm. There was some school somewhere where the students wanted their final test postponed because they wanted
George
to protest.
Floyd protest?
Yeah, because they wanted the protest for George Floyd. And the professor said, no, you don't get time off the protest. You can protest after you do your test. And they tried to get that person fired.
Man, so crazy.
So here's where I think this gets very thorny. And again, this is my own sort of subjective rootedness here, I think is I have to acknowledge, right? Which is that I'm an extremely privileged white straight cis man. And I just don't have the ability to internally subjectively experience life as, say, a Black law student at university.
Oh my God, fuck off. Why is he having this conversation?
Well, it's funny because he is able to internally, subjectively experience it. That's called like imagination. You're like imagining it's a terrible situation for that person and it's fucking evil.
Right. But if Chris's position is, well, I'm a straight cis white male, so I can't possibly tell someone who experiences heart palpitations over saying the N-word with asterisks, I can't possibly tell them that what they're feeling is wrong or not productive because I am white. Then shut the fuck up, Chris. Then fuck off. Never talk about race again. And you can't be, guess what? You can't be a political commentator. You can't be a social commentator.
True.
You can just fuck off and go in a hole and keep all your thoughts and your opinions to yourself and then die an old man. Okay, alone in the void. If this is the position that we're taking here.
Yeah.
Like it's insane to me that a journalist is going to have this position. Well, I can't talk about specific opinions. I can talk about specific positions unless I've personally experienced them. What kind of world does that construct? Okay, for everybody.
Yeah. This is in Coddling of the American Mind, they talk about it as, what is it, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and how a lot of this woke stuff is just like playing into all the mistakes that cognitive behavioral therapy tells you to avoid. And this is classic catastrophizing. It's like, oh my God, I saw the N-word on a test. Oh my God, I'm never going to be able to survive. Like, you got to teach people to get over that. Like, what's going on here? Society has completely failed these people if they can't, like we joked around about Saving Private Ryan, man. We got to toughen these people up. How do we do that? It's
not doing this.
It's so wrong.
Not doing this.
It's so wrong. It's so wrong that we're going after the teacher who put it on the test. Like, what's going on here?
This relates to your very favorite artist in the world.
Oh no. Scott
Adams had
I tried to listen to a couple Scott Adams and I was like, I see why Sitch is still into Scott Adams, but
he had a very pertinent tweet about this exact subject. And he says, here's a reframe that will change some people's lives forever. Your mind is the outcome of genetics, trauma, and hacks. And if you don't learn to hack or program your own brain, the default is that you are you are a little more than your genes and your traumas.
Yeah, NPC. Okay. That's where the NPC meme comes from.
Right.
And that's where the free will selling free will meme comes from.
Exactly. This is just a nice way of reframing the free will argument. And what he's saying is that you have to use little hacks, little tricks, okay, to gain free will, to program your mind to want to react to situations in specific ways. And if you don't program your mind to react to specific ways, then you have no free will. You are just acting out the whims of your biology and of the traumas that the environment has forced upon you. And this is exactly what wokeness is programming people to do. It's literally programming them to not have free will, to say, give in to all your baser instincts. Whatever emotional reaction you have to something instantly is correct. And anyone that tells you otherwise is probably racist.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Chicago, I can try to sort of expand out my
But what would the difference have been between this year and the years before?
Well, but here's the question, right? Like, so there's a few things.
I want to make a little comment on because I'm like, it's easy to say, toughen up, but there's like an incentive structure going on here. Like they're literally being rewarded for not being tough because, if they cringe at seeing the N-word in a paper, there's like tangible gain, and society's bending over backwards to cater to them. So I don't know how you get around that. I mean,
you have to remove the gain. That's the issue.
Yeah, I know, but I feel like society's suffering this crisis of authority. Like there used to be authority figures that would step in and say all the things that you and I are saying. Like, this is ridiculous. Society's going off the deep end. What are we doing here? Like, why we're I think a lot of people believe that this is just performative stuff. Like this isn't tangible harm.
It is a lot performative, yes.
But you can't step up and say that. You can't step up and say, listen, we know you're fucking with us. You don't really care about the N-word of a paper here. Come on. You can't do that because then your head's on the chopping block.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, what? You don't believe me? You must be racist too. Off with your head. Time to the funeral pyre.
Yeah, I mean, that's why the people who can stand up have to stand up.
How do we fix a crisis of authority, though? Like, that's the thing. So many...
We have to stop incentivizing this baby behavior. That's how we do it. The way that I think, to answer your question specifically, I think the way it's going to be fixed is because people are going to keep bending over backwards.
Yeah.
I said there's going to be a breaking point where they're going to realize.
Why are they bending over backwards?
Because, it's different for different institutions. They're all financially motivated to do this. So colleges are very much financially motivated to baby their students nowadays.
Also guard their reputation because they feel like social media, their reputation is like out there on a wire.
Right. Because it seemed like it used to be, and maybe this is not true, but it seemed like it used to be back when my parents went to college, that they kind of looked at students as students who were coming to institutions to learn. Okay. But now when I went to college, it felt like and this is very different between teachers and administrators. The teachers still look at it that way, but administrators, I feel like they look at students as customers.
Yes.
And so that's why the customer's always right. They just kind of give in to whatever fucking idiotic demands that the customers have. Yeah. And so that's why I think the colleges are failing, because they're so driven that way. And then you have all these institutions like the ACLU and NAACP are all losing their status because, again, they're financially motivated to receive donations. And the way they receive donations is by scaring the rest of the country that we're on the brink of racist, transphobic terrorists taking over the country. So that they keep hyping up the fear.
Fear on both sides. Both sides are playing the fear game.
Right. But I think they're doing it for financial reasons for the most part. Their financial incentives, unfortunately, are aligned with promoting this very negative view of the country and of the world.
Yeah, because the students have the power because they're paying through the nose for these educations.
Right.
Yeah.
About that. So one of them is people accommodate to really fucked up situations, and then a certain thing happens and they stop accommodating. So like we've seen that with Me Too, where there were workplace dynamics that went.
So this is so insane. He's saying, oh, well, there's probably tons of black students that looked at and saw the N-word with asterisks, and they also had heart palpitations and everything, but they just put up with it. They just put up with it for years and years and years.
No, I would argue that they didn't have the palpitations.
Yeah.
They were
Jesus
like,
Christ.
Don't you kind of have to train people to get triggered by something?
Yes, you do. Or you train them to not be triggered by something. And that's what's so weird is all the onus is against strengthening people. It's all on, we have to put bubble wrap around all the corners of the edges. This is the toxic femininity I was talking about, okay? Is that it's, instead of saying, look, the world is dangerous, okay? And there's a lot of sharp edges there. So you have to look where you're walking. You have to be aware. Instead of that, they say, oh, well, the world is dangerous. You don't have to change who you are whatsoever. We're just going to put bubble wrap on all the edges.
Yeah. Pave the forest.
Right. Which, that just makes you weaker. That makes you weaker.
Yeah.
For years.
Sure.
That were fine. And then one day it was like, wait a second. When my boss kept talking about my outfits every day, like, actually that was messed up, and actually that was doing something messed up to me, and the expectation was that was fine and normal, but it's not anymore. And I think actually, because I think there's a connection, right, between Me Too and some of this conversation, I do think there's some people who have had that same reaction of like, wait, we woke up one day and it's not okay to do this thing we did for 25 years, but and like maybe a thing that was happening for 25 years wasn't good, right?
That's part of how social revolutions happen, and it's important, but as always, you end up getting stuck on the issue of degree. And 5 asterisks, come on. I think honestly, Chris, if I may, I think that if we allow that is the sort of thing that people are just not going to put up with anymore when we're talking about a law school.
He's like, dude, you're comparing an N and 5 asterisks to Me Too. To like being sexually assaulted harassed by your boss.
Yeah, but as you said earlier, words are violence.
Yeah.
Okay. This is why this is so insidious. Okay. If you tell a small child since the moment they grow up that words are violence, and that they can have negative, tangible effects on you, guess what happens?
You're going to grow up afraid of words. You're going to grow up in terror of words.
Not just that the words will actually cause violence.
Yes. Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes. Because the human mind is malleable in that way. And if you tell children, you teach them to have heart palpitations because someone said the N-word, then they will. It will be real for them. Yeah. But you're still creating the situation for them.
Yeah, that's the thing. How do we stop it? How do we change it? Like, it seems like you could step in with some science and maybe convince them, but nah. The incentives are too strong to gain power. That's what they're after. They want the story. They want to be in the New York Times. They're like,
yes,
this story. We're all talking about this story because it was someone mentioned it in the New York Times. Everyone wants to be in the paper. It's an attention economy.
Right. And unfortunately, the papers have figured out that the best way to
sell papers is to put that story in there. Yeah, exactly.
It's through outrage.
Oh, man. None of this is going to change.
No, it will. It will. It's going to, because it's going to eat itself. That's the thing. This is not a sustainable. The only good part about this is that woke leftivism is not sustainable because it's continually destroying itself, and it's going to run out of bodies at some point. It's going to run out of its own bodies, which is what they always go after themselves harder than they go after the other people.
I know, it's the thing.
It's like. It's so funny because I told you last week or a couple weeks ago, like everyone in BreadTube is starting to realize that their own community is horrifyingly toxic and awful.
Oh my God. That's awesome.
It's like, they realize that they're like, that they've created a monster and that they're writing this monster that cannot be ridden because it's always hungry. And it's only a matter of time before it tries to grab the rider off its back and eat it too.